through the times and through the ages, there's been problems, misconceptions, misideas, and then comes along an opportunity for us to all either shine or rise through the hero's journey. Our next guest is someone who has had aversion in his life and he's taken that aversion and turned it into a business that's able to help men all around the world. Hi, this is Joey from the Secret Men's Business. On today's podcast, we're going to be speaking to Brendan Giebel, who's living in Brisbane and who's going to be speaking to us about his coaching business, but more importantly, telling us about his journey to how he got here. Brendan, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you. I mean, like I was saying to you before we started, like I've been really lucky. I've been meeting all these amazing people and just getting an insight into how they live their lives, which inspires me and hopefully inspires our listeners. So before we start, do you mind just maybe telling us a little bit about you, just about, your background?
Yeah, of course. Well, obviously probably go into this a bit later on, but just as overall, I grew up in Brisbane, lived here my whole life, and I went to an all boys school as well, which I don't think kind of helped my situation all that much as well. And then I was come out of school, I was a chippy and pretty successful. Like ran some big jobs. But then it just wasn't working for me, it wasn't clicking, and something needed to change. And then over time, I was just kind of changing myself and trying to help myself. And then from there, I just noticed all these other guys that needed help, and that's where I pretty much transitioned to being a full time coach.
Okay. And so when you say that you felt like something wasn't right, like, can you explain that a little bit more? Because I think it's so interesting that nearly every coach I've spoken to has said the same words. Like they felt that there was something not working. So for you, what was it? Was it more a spiritual calling, or was it a dissatisfaction with, say, the work, or what was it for you that made you go something needs to change? Because I think it takes courage to actually say that, firstly, and secondly, to leave something and go to something new. I think that's, people don't realize how brave that is, because it is easier to stay in that job and just lap it up, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. That was hard for me, especially because I was working fly in, fly out, which has probably led
Yeah.
to one of my darkest times.
Okay.
And coming off such good money and everything, but then you realize that the money's not the thing that's making you happy. And that was
Yeah.
the dark part. So what I felt needed to change in that situation was like I couldn't go on life living like this. Like it wasn't
Mm.
sustainable for me. I was getting worse as time was going on, and it was got to the point where like I nearly tried to kill myself in there, and that was I was like, there's just more out there. Like I could see successful people, I could see others, and I just had like this kind of feeling that I can do more, and there's more out there for me, but I just didn't know where or what to look for at the time.
Mm.
And so that was kind of like where it was like I see everything else, and I have this awareness of everything else, but I just couldn't find it, and that's
Yeah.
kind of where it all started from.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I was saying to you online, I'm really drawn to you and admire you for experiencing this at a young age, because I didn't have my situation similar to yours when I was about 30, late 30s, right? Like
Yeah,
I knew something wasn't right. So you're able to actually tap into it at a time that most guys would be drinking and having fun and not even thinking about anything serious. So
yeah,
when you were experiencing that dark place, and I'm really sorry to hear that you were in that really dark place, what do you think were the key elements that navigated you out of it? How did you get out of that dark place? Because it doesn't happen overnight, does it? Like,
no,
yeah, what did you do? What were some of the things that you did?
yeah. Thanks, but there's also a second side to that too. Like I wouldn't be here who I am. I wouldn't be the man I am today without experiencing that. So
Totally,
I
totally.
don't feel any bad about it at all. So it's
Yeah,
just
but
what
like
it
at
is.
the time, you would have not known
Yeah,
that.
for sure, of
Yeah,
course.
and that's the beauty of these, I guess, these interviews, is that people can, that are going through a bad situation at the moment, can hear from people like yourself that there is a light and there is opportunity at the end of it. But
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that we have to stay in this dark place, because I think that's the reason why so many guys commit suicide, is because they can't see a solution or a way out. So what
yeah,
helped you? Like, did you use any resources, or what made you or helped you get out of that dark place?
yeah, sure. So I started right at the point like when the time when I was probably seconds away from ending it all. I something in me said like, "Are you really going to give up that easy?"
Mm.
And so that was kind of a big turning point, knowing that my mind still kind of override everything else that was going on. I didn't know. Looking at it now, I know why, but at the time, I didn't really know. And then so I was like, what do I do? And then I just started reading books. I started going to courses. I was doing flew overseas to events. I was like
Yeah.
went overseas traveling, tried
So
to
can I just ask, were you still working, doing flying in, flying out while you're doing this, or had you left at this point?
bit of both. It kind of I because I'd work, fly in, fly out for a while, and then travel for 6 months, 5, 6 months, seeming like I was living the dream, but I
Right.
was just searching, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, so all different. I come back home and was working around town, but I was always away, kind of hiding behind my career as well, using
Mm.
that as an excuse. But it was like I was always looking for things outside of myself.
Yeah. So
That's
was that telling you that something wasn't right in you?
yeah. I realize that now, but at the time I
Yeah.
didn't. I was like, I'm looking for this. Didn't matter what I went out and drunk or talk or whoever I slept with or whatever. Like I was looking for everything outside of myself. And then the
Yeah.
turning point was when I started looking within. And I can't
Yeah.
remember the exact thing that happened, but
Yeah.
once I started looking within, things just started skyrocketing.
Yeah. I mean, and it's so good that you highlighted such an important factor, and that is that you were hiding behind a mask
Mm.
so you don't show people. So was there an anxiety or some sort of feeling that you didn't want people to know that things were not going well as they may think? Did you not? There was a part of you at that time that didn't want to share things.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
think I think it's kind of in men especially it's a problem for us at the moment because we get taught to not feel, to not show emotion, to hold everything back, to suppress, sedate, and everything. And I think it's kind of happened over years from the Industrial Revolution, where
Mm.
men get shipped off and just make the money, provide for the family. Then you've got a whole generation with the world wars that have come in that have got told and beaten into them if you feel it'll get you killed. So that's all passed down from our fathers. Like our fathers and their fathers are doing the best job that they can, but there's just a flow on effect from
Mm.
that. Um, so yeah, it was kind of like I felt like if I was hurting or if I wanted to tell someone, then it was like a sign of weakness for me.
Yeah.
Whereas it didn't.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not.
not, and that's why it's beautiful now that we're all, finally we're catching up, and men are starting to open up. I have interviewed a few people that work in the flying in and fly out industry, and
Yeah.
they went in depth. So, like for you, when you were going through that dark time and you were on the edge, do you feel that there was no one to turn to at that point? Like, is it really that masculine energy in there that you can't be weak? You can't. Is it, or do you feel like that's changing? I know it may be a while since you've been working there.
Um, I think it's definitely changing. Yeah, because there's a lot more awareness about are you okay and everything. And I was working in one of the biggest jobs in Western Australia that had a camp of like I think there was like 7,000 people on this island.
Wow.
Not I felt like the loneliest I had been, but I just didn't want to go. I was stuck in my own little bubble. I didn't want to go meet anyone else. Because I kind of thought that it was hard for me to talk to people, and everyone that I knew that I met was like an awkward interaction, just
Yeah.
other things I had going on. So I
And I
just would
guess and I
go to
guess
the
mental
camp.
health wasn't as open as it is probably now. Like,
No,
I think now, especially the last 2 years, I mean, there's a way more openness about it. So I mean, it's so interesting. Like I've heard so many guys say exactly what you've said, and I guess it's good for me because I don't understand what that feels like, right? And again, I think you've highlighted such an important point: is that we think that when we see someone, especially someone like you, who's young, good looking, traveling, having fun, working, that we think you've got the life, and we think,
yeah.
and so people may not even ask you how you are because they just think that you're okay.
Mm.
Um, so on your journey through that, what were some of the obstacles that you think you faced in regards to changing? Like, I know that you mentioned that you'd run away and you'd just try and seek something, and then something came to you. Like, but did you experience any obstacles that you can look back on and see that they were maybe gold opportunities?
Yeah, for sure. There was a lot of obstacles. Like I said, that time where said to myself, "Are you really going to give up that easy?" I'm pretty stubborn in nature, so that was a bit of a good gold thing because it's like my mind, even though if it is going down this point, I still can override it as such.
Mm.
Um, Another obstacle, which was a very big turning point for me too was I went overseas in America for a 7-day entrepreneurial event. Still, again, looking for things outside of myself. Um, and just in the midday, we had to film a video to 5 people close to us, whether it be friends, family, or whatever. And still at that time, like talking in front of a camera, talking, hearing myself speak, and all that was still because I was very shy growing up. It was still very like I don't want to do this. Like, so I was walking home and I filmed a few things to my family, and then I was seeing this girl at the time too, and I sent one to her, and I sent them all off, and it was nighttime, so I went to bed, and I was like, kind of a bit stressing, waking up the next morning. Everyone replied except this girl, and then it wasn't until like 2 days later that she replied with a message, but she said that she was um, crying so much she couldn't reply back to me, and it kind of like this was just like a gratitude to say thank you and everything. And over time, I developed that to something that I teach, which is like send a daily gratitude message to anyone, client, family, friend, or whatever.
Mm,
Relationships change massively.
yeah.
But that was a very big turning point for me, knowing that as soon as I tell someone how I feel, or like I was telling my parents and my dad probably for the first time that I loved him, and like to get that back was like a big thing. It's like, why have I been holding on and not doing that for so long?
Mm,
Knowing that as soon as I reach out to someone and say, be honest and say like I love you or thanks for doing this, thanks for doing that. They give it back to them. Like
yeah.
so, and your relationships change. Like I started obviously with his text message, 2 text messages to my father telling him that I loved him and thank you for raising me who I am. A relationship changed like that.
Yeah.
Crazy difference it makes. But
It's
that
such
was a
an
big.
it's so amazing. Like, so in your opinion, do you think that what you experienced back then is, I mean, I guess you'll see this in your workshops. Is this a common thing that guys tell you? That they go
Um,
through this similar thing where they don't understand and they learn gratitude and things change? Because I think
yeah,
there is a bit of a, I don't know, I don't want to call it stubbornness, because I went through a similar thing with my dad, and it's like something is weird if you have to say that word, isn't it? Like guys feel a bit funny about it because it's emotional, but the reality is that, like you said, when you say it, it's so freeing. So have
yeah,
you noticed your mates or people that come to your workshops that you're hearing the same story that you went through reflected back?
yeah, for sure. They I think there's a lot of expectations of that the kids put on that they think their dad's putting on them, but really it's not. So
Yeah.
especially like around saying I love you and everything, it's almost like a taboo thing where it's like I don't want to say that.
Yeah.
Um,
And it
and
could just be something as simple as the dad didn't say it to, your dad didn't say it to his dad.
yeah,
And so there's this
it's just
historical
flow on
as,
effect. Yeah,
yeah. And it's and the funny thing as well is um that there is no real learning at a young age to understand about control. I think if kids learned about control, that I can only control myself, I can't control what anyone else does. So they'd learn not to make things mean something about themselves. And we would really iron out a lot of these beliefs that our parents or people in our past caused us to be who we are. But in reality, we caused it ourselves.
yeah.
So I was going to ask you, what do you think are some of the main factors that men are experiencing in 2020, 2021? What are the newer or the main things that we notice that men are feeling?
I think there's definitely the thing in the media at the moment that's kind of about the domestic violence and all that kind of thing.
Mm,
I think that's going to have a big flow on effect for men if they get caught up in it. Like it's easy to get, as we all know, it's easy to get caught up in the media. Um,
well, do you
personally,
mean
I
get
don't.
caught up in not in? What do you mean by get caught up in it? Seeing it as a negative thing?
Yeah, well, like they always see it see it in the media, and if that's all they're watching news. They kind of feel like it's
They're being
coming
attacked.
directly at them,
Yeah, I get
but
it. Yeah.
it's not necessarily directed at them. It's
Yeah, and on that point, there is a bombardment, isn't it? Me Too, and equal rights and domestic violence and sexual abuse. All this stuff's being thrown because it's not really about men. It's just about the world changing. Like
exactly.
in today's paper in Melbourne, like there is a big story about these boys that are men now. How they all talk about the fact that they have admitted after like years that they actually did sexually abuse their partners.
Yeah.
At the time they didn't think they did. So I was reading that going, well, that's really interesting because sometimes, when I post some things about domestic violence, I sometimes get abuse from men because they think I'm not defending men, but they don't see that it's actually not an attack at anyone. It's just an awareness of
Yeah.
how we treat each other. Um, so what else do you think is happening for men in regards to the changes that we're going through?
Um, I think there's definitely in terms of good things, there's definitely an awareness coming around that it's okay to reach for help, and the male suicides are 3 or 4 times what females are.
Mm,
So I think it's all the awareness is coming that it's okay for men to seek help and all that. But I still think as going on from the years down, like this rise in single parents and single mothers, divorce rates and everything. Um, and another one I see too is like settling. I made a post about it yesterday actually. Like people get into a relationship and then over time, which is cool, but to a certain extent, they settle, they start putting on weight, they start doing this, start doing that, and they're not dating their partner anymore. They're not
mm.
dating their wife, their
So they
husband,
become a bit
whatever.
complacent.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so it gets to a point, and then their relationship isn't the same, and then it goes south, and then they're lost from
yeah,
there because they're like, I don't know what's happening. So I think and then the father figure's not around in that situation because so then that next generation's on. So I think it's it's like it's a flow-on effect that's still happening that needs
yeah.
to slowly break. Like it's gone downhill like this, and it's going to go like this for a little bit before it then
Mm.
starts
Yeah.
taking off.
I think that what we were talking about before about men becoming more open to changing will heavily influence that because you're right. Like, women historically, when they're not having something right, because I've been running workshops for a very long time, and, predominantly it's been females that come because they've been aware emotionally a lot more, but men now are
Mm,
becoming more aware. And I think that's all it takes is, permission. It's like that people don't tease them or laugh at them or they don't feel like they're being teased. It's like they're taking responsibility for their life because I think they're realizing that if you don't, you don't end up with anything. So do you think that's the main reason why? Do you agree with what I was saying earlier? Is that the main reason why men do try suicide?
yeah,
You think
I think
because they're lost? You were saying,
yeah, they're lost and they can't see a way out, or they can't see and it's just easier in that time to go.
yeah, to
Like,
end it.
yeah,
Like, so what would you say to someone listening? And I know this is just like I don't not putting any pressure on you on it, but that's what would you say to someone who is, lost? You've been lost yourself. So what would something that you would help them to understand that ending it isn't the right thing? Like, for you, you had a moment where you realized that you were connected to something, and I think that's a really big part of suicide treatment is if you can get someone to be ambivalent about something and just connect with it, that little tiny speck is hope to keep them alive. So, what would you suggest or say to someone that may be feeling what you may have felt all those years ago?
just to kind of start bettering yourself and look inside and not try and search for anything else like external, trying to help yourself.
Mm,
Your happiness comes from within. So that's the first place you need to start. And also it's like seek help. It's not weak to ask for help. And you might like for me, it took me 6 years to get to where probably 12 months ago when I first started finding the real thing that made the biggest difference for me. It took me 5 or 6 years to do that. You seek help and find someone. It might take you 6 months. It might
yeah,
take you a day, like my breakthrough.
yeah,
But you know what I mean?
yeah. I
That's
mean, I'm going to add to that and say I actually think it takes us forever. You know what I mean? Like I think forever we're always evolving. And I mean,
oh for sure, yeah,
I had my moment in my 20s. I was lost, and then in my 30s, I was like just more lost. And then something happened and caused me to have that change. But every time I think I know it a lot, I then have another moment. So I've had all these adversities come up, which again, similar to you, I love. So those sort of things I think help us to become stronger. And why do you think some guys, from your experience, and it could just be friends or clients, why do you think some guys resist or sabotage that experience? Like,
I think it's definitely stuff that they're going on themselves. Like it's they don't want to reach out for help, or they're too worried about if anyone else sees what they're doing. Um,
do you think that
or
they may feel that they don't need it?
yeah, definitely. I think it's
Yeah.
also too, it's like they feel like they need to be broken and beaten down and completely rock bottom before they can ask for help.
Yeah, well, that could happen anyway. But I had a guy come to see me the other week, and it's funny because I could feel that he was resistant. And asked him, I said, "Look, can I be honest?" I said, "Do you feel like I'm going to fix you?" And he said, he was honest. He said, "Yes." So I was really grateful for that. I
Yeah,
think some guys do think that therapy is where we do the work,
yeah,
and they don't do anything. So it's interesting how the people that don't want to do the work, they don't do the work, do they?
yeah, for sure. Like I have a probably like yourself, pre-screen my clients, and one of the questions is like, do you want like I asked, do you want to change? Do you really want to? And like, is there any secondary gain from you having this issue? You know, like some people might be getting payments or other things. There's a secondary gain, so really they don't want to, but they just want to get a little bit better or something. So
Yeah.
definitely, like they have to be 100% willing to be able to let go and to be able to, that they believe it's going to work. Because if they don't believe it's going to work, it's not.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point too. The secondary gain, and it has to be a mind shift, doesn't it? Like I think back and I go, wow, there was some times that was really hard. Like it was
Yeah,
really, really hard. Like I'm talking about the depths of loneliness and trying to find anything that's going to help, and nothing was helping. But that was, I keep reminding people of the hero's journey. It's basically like any movie that we watch. Like there's, Luke Skywalker is lost and he gets taught and then he becomes the hero. All of us have that experience in our lives.
yeah.
So, in regards to some of the more recent issues that men are going through, what's your opinion on, say, addictions like porn and sex and even drug addiction and alcohol? What do you think? Why do you think men are distracting themselves more deeply um, in those areas? What's your opinion on
Yeah,
that?
it's definitely like they're just a. I mean, they're using to suppress and sedate and silence what's going on for them.
Mm,
So I used to be the same. I used to drink. Not many people knew that, but I used to drink a lot of nights because I didn't want it would kind of bring a little bit of happiness for me.
mm.
So it's like a cover they're putting over pretty much. And also like they can be very addictive as we know. And then you've got porn and all these other things, especially gaming as well. That
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Like
yeah, gaming. I didn't think of that one.
it's
Yeah, it's
yeah,
sort of
it's kind of
self-medicating, isn't it? It just means
it
that
is.
I sort of look at it as whatever you're doing that's outside of yourself. Like you were saying, you raised a really good point. Yours was going traveling, having sleeping with people, doing all these experiences. But until you went inside yourself, nothing shifted. So it's the same sort of thing with addiction. It's like it really is just distracting you from doing the work. And
Exactly.
I say to clients, like, I really believe that they say to me, "Oh my god, it seems so hard," and I just shake my head and go, "No, what you're doing now, I believe, is way harder. Like
Yeah.
holding the mask up, really pretending, that's hard, and they don't really realize that they don't see it that way. Do you see that yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I do a lot of work with internal strategies and stuff. And so you see someone that has anxiety, it's like that before they actually really get anxiety, they see a trigger and then they have all these different things. Like they tell themselves one thing and another and another, and this strategy's like this long. And then for me, like if I not that I really get anxiety too much, but if I was going to, it'd be like one thing. I'd probably tell myself something and then see it. Whereas their strategy's so long, I'm like, that's just you're like
It's
spending
it's
so much
exhausting.
energy and like I'm almost impressed about how long that is. So
Yeah, and they say things like, "Oh, but I can't get out of it." So it
mm,
is. I mean, I've had anxiety. That's the reason why I do my job because that was the beginning of my journey. But
yeah,
it is when you're in it, it is scary, and like similar to I guess you being in the dark hole when you were, doing the fly in fly out. I was gonna. How did your friends? Because you're so young, right? I mean, and I love that. I think we need more young energy. How did your friends and people around you like take to your change of or your truth even
um,
because you're quite truthful and vulnerable? How did they take to all that?
yeah. So at the start, I suppose I was kind of at the start. I definitely had an imposter syndrome, and I was kind of doing I created a business page, and then I was doing everything out of that. My personal stuff was completely separate. Um, then I started a few things, and I remember being out a couple of my friends, kind of like being like, "Who are you to do this, this, and that?"
They said that.
Yeah. Um, But at the time, I was like, "Oh, whatever," just kind of blew it off. I'm like, because I kind of had those same feelings, you know. But now kind of just is what it is. Like I see them, see my family, my friends. They all think what I'm doing is great, but we don't talk about it. You know, I
Yeah.
think I've gone past that, and like all these things about sometimes if people think that, well, because I'm young, who are you to do this? Like you don't have much life experience, this and that.
Yeah.
You know, all that blah blah stuff. I've already had all these feelings like 2 years ago, saying, "Am I good enough?" And like so that
Yeah.
whatever anyone thinks, like I had them myself all those years ago,
Mm.
and I know what I'm doing is a good thing, and it doesn't matter. I don't have to know everything to do what
Yeah,
I'm
and
doing.
also, I mean, like if you think about, the hero's journey again, like there's only certain people, I believe that, I used to teach coaching and therapy and all that to students, and it was funny. As soon as a class would start and they'd walk in, I could tell straight away who could do it,
Yeah,
right? Because not everyone. I think a lot of people think that there is an ease to what we do, right? Oh, I want to become a coach because it looks like he's got a good life. But then they realize that it's not easy, and you notice. I mean, in the 15 years I've been a therapist, I've seen so many people coming and going,
yeah,
and so I believe that the reason why you're doing it and because you're so young is because you were born to be this person.
yeah,
But
definitely.
this is your calling. So,
Yeah,
do you think that there is? Do you believe or do you agree with me in regards to the fact that we are experiencing a major boost in seeing all these coaches? But I don't know if all of them are I don't know, qualified or what do you think about this massive thing? Where on it, they seem to be everywhere. And do you think that there is an element of them that's thinking that they can do it because it's easy, or do you believe that we need this many?
um, I'm
The,
not sure. I'm
the,
not sure. I don't know how many there is out there, but I do know what you're saying. Like I'm always getting messages from people that are trying to say like scale your business to 10,000 a month and this and that. You know, people that do one or two things for them, and then they might do that for themselves, and then they try and help every other people and this and that. And I think there's a bit of a misconception that if you're a coach, then you can charge whatever you want, and you only do that for a couple of people. But I think there's definitely a need for it, like especially going forward with technology and everything creating. Like, I hate to say it, but I think a lot of jobs are going to get like artificial intelligence. Who knows where that's going to go? A lot of jobs are going to get
Mm,
taken, but the one thing is like the professional, like psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors, coaches, and all these people. They're the ones that are going to be needed because the
yeah,
people.
well, they are needed. Like, yeah, I think if you look back, I remember back in the 90s, it was IT. Everyone was doing IT, right? And I know that what you're talking about, there will be a shift towards AI stuff, which at the moment, I think what the coaching world is needed because we're going through a big awakening, and so there's a need for that. And I
Yeah,
totally agree with you. Um, like some coaches are charging thousands of dollars. Like I just watched a documentary last night, actually, that was really quite scary to watch because hold on, sorry, my light just went off. I don't know why.
uh-huh,
It was really quite scary to watch because what they talk about in there is the formula, right? And then they showed us clips of about 20 different people selling 20 different things, and they were saying the exact thing,
yeah,
right? So I believe that it has to come from the heart,
yeah, for
right?
sure.
That's what makes a good coach is if you know what you're doing and you're authentic, people will connect with you and they'll see what the truth. And I guess for you, because you're young, are you noticing that? Is that the reason why you feel like you're successful and things are going well? Is because you went through it, B, you've gone through hell and back, and now you're talking from the heart. So people are resonating.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm very like results client focused rather than I think a lot of people as well in the coaching industry are doing it for money. Whereas
Yeah,
I believe that amount of value you provide and everything, the money just comes and it's a tool to use to be able to reach and help more people.
I
Whereas
agree.
a lot of people are doing it like, oh, if I sign this one client, I might get X amount of dollars and sign another client X amount of money. Whereas I'm like get so fulfilled and like I hear the change and see the change in people and like that's the biggest thing for me really, you know?
Yeah.
Like so
Well, that's why again I did not talk to you until now, but for some reason when I looked at your picture, I knew exactly that's what you were going to say. Like I really have
yeah,
this ability to notice because there are people that are charging thousands of dollars, and when I listen to some of those therapists, and I'm a supervisor and I talk to them, they don't even talk about the client. They just talk about money.
Yeah.
So there is a shift. I get it that we have to make money, and I get that we
Yeah,
have
for
to
sure.
cope. The interesting thing is, now that JobKeeper and all those sort of government funds are going to stop, we're going to start noticing those things that you were talking about earlier sooner than later. We're going to notice people losing their jobs, people being unemployed, losing their houses. So if they need help and the fee is thousands of dollars, the reality is that these people aren't going to get the help they need. So I think a really good coach is someone that is able to help people without becoming so focused on becoming the next Tony Robbins. Because I think
Yeah.
that that's what a lot of people want to do. They want to become these gurus. Um, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I just think that sometimes we don't need 1,000 of them, do we?
No, no,
Yeah.
definitely. I
I was
think
gonna.
it's
I'll go on. Sorry.
yeah, I think it's for me too. Like the people that like at the moment, I'm kind of focusing on depression, anxiety, and like boosting confidence and stuff. Those type of people generally aren't in the best because they've got so much going on. They're not in the best place financially. So
Mm.
for me, it's about like trying to help them, but work out different payment things and stuff for them. Whereas a lot of like what you said, they wouldn't even have a look at them,
Yeah.
or everyone wants money up front and that's
Yep.
it. Like
Yeah. Sign up now, get 10% off, and all that stuff.
yeah,
I'm sure you've been I've been to those. I'm sure you have as well, right? Like those big group gatherings.
yeah,
Like you pay thousands of dollars, and not to sound pompous, but like recently I've been going to those things, say the last 5 years, and I'm in there and I go, oh, I think I know this stuff,
yeah,
and you sort of like realize that it's all regurgitated, isn't it, over and over again, and so it's good confirmation to say, okay, maybe I need to stop doing this type of learning and go and seek other learning so I can
yeah,
expand myself. And you know, I'll ask you one last question.
yeah,
Do you think that your age is an advantage and your background is an advantage to attract a certain clientele, like male wise? Are you seeing a lot more younger people?
yeah. Um, definitely, I'm seeing like, but it's strange. I'm kind of seeing a range of people to be honest. Like one of my clients later today, he's 53, and like had a rough life, and he's been living with these problems for like 40 years or something like. But then I'm also seeing guys that are. I've had a client that's 18. I've had another couple that are like early 20s. And for them, like it's massive to be able to reach out. And I say to them, like, good on you for reaching out. And because you're so young and they're not necessarily feeling like they're completely broken, but they reach out then and it's like their life's changed and is going for on a good path already. So it's it's good to see that. And it's not, but also I feel I do have a few older clients as well.
Yeah,
I
well,
do
older
feel,
clients are the people that normally conventionally go to therapy, and I think the reason why I asked the question is because you offer, there's an opportunity that's greater than yourself, and that is that you are like a beacon to people to say, oh look, if that guy there could be a coach, then I could see a coach,
yeah,
and that changes the mindset of the people that you maybe that worked in the fly in fly out, or it changes the mindset of people around you, or even the younger generation, because the younger generation is harder to admit that they need to get help,
yeah, for
and
sure.
so that's a good thing for you. I think that's we need more people
Yeah.
that
And I,
that are your age.
And I definitely live. I've been told this many times. I live the way that I teach. Everything about me is what I teach, and I live it like I'm living and breathing it. Whereas a lot of people, honey, like you see personal trainers who are training and they don't look like they've ever worked out a day in their life. And
Yeah,
it's you've got doctors that look like they're not very healthy at all, and they're telling people. So I think for me personally, like I have to be not so much
authentic,
at the top, but
authentic.
I have
Yeah,
to be the people to look at and be like, yeah, I want to kind of be like him. So that's a big thing too that I'm getting that people are resonating with me as well.
yeah, yeah. And I guess what you've just highlighted is that all those doctors and personal trainers and people that aren't really living the truth is it's similar to what I guess we both did when we didn't know. Like I think
Yeah.
it shows you that there's so many people wearing masks,
Oh,
and so until they go inside themselves, then that's the only time it's going to change, isn't it?
for sure.
Yeah, we've got a big job ahead of us. Brendan, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you're in daylight savings time and you have to get up early. I know you get up early anyway, but thank you so much for speaking to me at 8 a.m. your time. And I look
No worries.
forward to following your progress in career through social media, and hopefully we'll chat again.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You've been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. Just be mindful the podcast is out 2 times a week. That's Mondays and Thursday mornings. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button so we can tell you exactly when a new podcast is uploaded. Look, have a great guy. Have a great. I'm going to do that again. Sorry. You've been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. Now, be mindful that the podcast is out on Mondays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. So make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit the notification button so you can find out when the new episodes come out. Now, you have 2 channels. You've got the listening channel and you've also got YouTube on SMB TV. So have a great week, guys, and speak to you soon. Bye.